Good morning, everybody. This is Conrad Agramont. I'm with Agile IT. I'm the CEO here. Thank you for taking the time today to be with me as we go through and talk about digital transformation. We really wanted to put this webinar together for a lot of our customers and other people that are kind of looking for just some of a breakdown of, well, what is digital transformation? We're hearing that a lot in the marketplace today, in the industry. We're a very big Microsoft partner, as well as a partner of other cloud services as well. And it is definitely a hot topic that is pretty broad. So hopefully out of today, you'll get a better understanding of what it is. And one thing to just call out real quick, it's not one thing. You can't just go to the shelf and pick it up and have a digital transformation as much as we'd love it. It is a little bit of a process and just understanding, and there's lots of different ways to look at it. But in terms of what we need to go through together in understanding what it is, how it impacts our business, and what we need to do next, that's where we need to start off with. So that's really the goal for today. We'll cover various topics. The meeting is set for an hour. We will definitely not take that much time. I try to get this material in between 30 to 45 minutes because you don't want to overdo it. It could be a lot to consume. Again, the most important thing is the takeaway is understanding a little bit more about what it is, have a breakdown of what to do next, and then start to have a plan. And that's what we're going to go through today. So again, appreciate your time. If there's any questions that you have, please just put them in the chat window here in the webinar, and at the end I'll do my best to answer them. Or if we don't have a clear answer, or I don't think we're running out of time, we may just follow up separately. Because some topics you may not want to talk within the group. So again, appreciate your time. Put any questions, especially if to depart early, and then we'll follow up with you. So one of the first things that I love to bring up is our vision at Agile IT. And the reason why this is so important is I think it helps give a little bit more context of who we are and kind of the string that connects all these things together as we talk about digital transformation. Because our view as a company, we've always been born in the cloud. Everything that we do is cloud related. But one of the other areas that we focus on is really working with customers who have this same vision or passion. You may not be on the cloud today. You may not be using a lot of cloud services, although I doubt it. You're probably using some. But one of the things that we want to have, and we've been building with our customers, is really building a community of managed customers. These are customers that, for the most part, we provide ongoing services for. And as you look at digital transformation, you'll find out why that's so important. Even if you don't select us, you have to work with a partner that really has a vision that marries up to your vision and your roadmap together, or else it's not really a true partnership, and you won't be working together as you both advance. The other thing in our vision is that it is looking at cloud services beyond the IT department. So many times IT is looked at as one unit by itself. But if you look at digital transformation, it's much broader than that. It really is a set of services that really impacts everybody in the organization. Now your question might be, well, really everybody? Absolutely. Just because somebody's not building a product or looking at data or focused on identity or security doesn't mean that they don't have an impact in the organization that isn't connected to a digital transformation at some point. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means as we go along. But one thing I'll tell you, there is no one single answer in here that we'll talk about today that's going to completely transform your business by itself. It's a collection of items. So again, this is our vision. We've also made big investments around security, which I'll talk briefly about as we go through here. And it'll actually, just as a preview, be a third pillar in terms of our vision as a company and the things that we're doing. So quite excited, and that'll be in a future webinar. So from a digital transformation perspective, these are the basics. Now, as we look through, and I'll talk about here briefly and show you some examples from other places such as MIT, Forbes, Microsoft, everybody has a different view of what this is. What we did was we condensed it down to what we feel is the core areas to make it very simple, because as we know, if we make it very complicated, it's hard not just for yourself to take it on, but to explain it to all the other business units that you may deal with. So the first thing is a vision. Defining a vision that defines what your digital transformation will look like. Every business is a little bit different. Every market is different. Your services are different, so you really have to paint a vision that really combines all those elements. And the vision is not, this is the vision for the IT department. It has to be a digital transformation organization. So it's definitely not something that you can do by yourself. You need feedback, you need to work on it together with the other business units, and that's what makes so much impact. I know that sounds like a lofty goal, but normally these are things that make a huge difference in your business, and I'll talk about why, how that can also help with technical debt in a few slides later on. The other part are really around people, product, and your processes. These elements together will force digital transformation. Now again, the digital transformation, when you look at it, really is combining all these different services together into a unique set of capabilities within your organization. If we look at organizations such as Forrester, Gartner, and IDC, these are three of the biggest analysts. You know, Forrester and IDC being very vendor-driven, Gartner being very customer-driven in terms of who they deal with and the type of data that they collect. One of the things that we're really seeing in the marketplace and many of your peers is that they all know that a digital transformation strategy is critically important. They're either working on it or they're building something today. But the other part is that it's slow moving. And one of the reasons why it's slow moving is that it is very different in your organization to change how you deliver services, how you collect data, what do you do with that data, how does that impact our people? Do we have the right people in order to impact the services and the kind of culture that we need to have? There are other more technology-driven ones, things that you're really starting to hear in the marketplace growing quite heavily. Artificial intelligence and virtual reality, augmented reality are two that seemed many years away. And even now when people talk about it, I'll tell you myself that sometimes I think, is this real? You know, we've heard about it for so long, and you've seen it everywhere, you know, from Microsoft and Google and others that are, you know, and even now Apple with the new iOS 11 and some of the things they're doing with their phones that are really bringing these things to the forefront where they're actually in people's hands now. So that's the other exciting thing is that, you know, these, you know, devices just like with Android and Samsung where they're doing the same types of thing around AI, or, augmented reality, artificial intelligence through Microsoft and Google and Amazon Web Services. These services are now available. The technology are now in people's pockets in their mobile phones. So really, it's not about, well, it's going to take a long time and people have to buy it. They have it. So this is what makes it exciting, but it also means that we have to provide the infrastructure and the set of services and our products to make it work because there's lots of other startups and other companies that are disrupting the marketplace. And I'll cover that briefly, both from a financial services marketplace and even manufacturing. There's a little bit of health as well. The other key areas, if you look at Forbes, so some of the top trends around IoT, so there's Internet of Things. So these are really these sensors, these devices, these edge units that are being put out there. A lot of that is to provide information back to either the consumer, back to the business, that's you, to provide other types of services. So one that you hear all the time is around sprinklers or security systems that can provide information back in terms of people's access or water pressure. You know, how does the impact of weather plus water pressure make a difference on crops? And so all that information where before it was handwritten or data somebody had to collect and then, you know, figure it out, now that data is just naturally coming back into the service. So this means that if you have a sprinkler system or if you're in the, let's say, the retail space or the e-commerce space, you can get all this additional intelligence back in order to either sell more products, improve products, provide value-added services to customers who've purchased those products. It's quite exciting from a product perspective. Again, lots of different technologies. I'm not going to go through every one of these because there's some commonality as you kind of go through this. So you see virtual reality, artificial intelligence in a couple of places. Microsoft has also taken a very kind of broad approach in terms of what does it mean for digital transformation. Now, what I really like about their vision is that they're just not pushing the technology side, which is different because that used to be what Microsoft focused on a lot. They still provide technology capabilities as you drill down into the pillars. But what they're really saying is that, you know, the things that we need to do in a digital transformation world is look at every aspect of our business. How are we connecting with our customers? What are the types of services that we're doing with them? What kind of information that we can get back from our customers, or their systems, or their devices, or their sensors, or their patterns and practices to improve our products, or to understand, did we put something out into the field that isn't working so well, or isn't meeting the impact that we thought we would have. In the past, we wouldn't know. We would just have customers that wouldn't buy the product again, or we get a lot of bad reviews. But now we can get that data back, analyze it, and then make decisions before, hopefully, the customer says that it's not meeting the mark. And if we really go all the way, we can make those product improvements on the fly and make impacts to the overall experience to the customer. So gone are the days of spending 4 or 5 years creating this perfect product, getting it out, and people hate it, and then you have to work for 4 or 5 years. Your product is dead. So engaging with your customers, empowering your employees with that data, with information that you can give them, optimizing your operations both in automation, data flows, improving your processes, and really transforming your products to meet all these goals. So again, these are important concepts, and it really still falls in line what we talk around in terms of you're setting a vision, your people, product, and processes. Gartner talks about some other areas, again, some very technical in nature. One that I really like to look at is digital dexterity, which is really, do you have the attributes and skills within your organization, both as an IT view of it, but also throughout the business? Do we have people that understand that technology changes pretty rapidly? Gone are the days where I had one person who was a SQL 2008 DBA, and they could latch onto that product because we knew that customers would have that technology for the next 5, maybe even 7 years. So they can become the most knowledgeable, most smartest person on the planet just on that one product. And it was a lot of really good job security because if it wasn't here, someplace else had that one product. You still have specialists. You still want people to do things, but the technology is evolving so fast, and with other kind of cloud services where you can deploy different types of SQL databases. Sometimes you're not even deploying a server anymore. You're just using SQL services. You're using reporting services. So you can still specialize in a given area, but again, the technology just continues to be updated. So you don't see Azure 2016. You don't see Amazon Web Services 2015. It's just the service, and it evolves normally every month, every few weeks, depending on the product, the technology. So do we have the right people, processes, the right approach to be flexible with those sorts of capabilities, or don't we? Now, this is important because as we talk more about what's next, what do we want to do in the future, how do you plan as a CIO or a CEO or director of IT services to really plan out your future and what you're going to do next as it relates to digital transformation? Again, at the end of the day, what technology you use, what first projects you use, the approach that you take, the partnerships that you have, everybody's going to be just a little bit different. What's not different is the need to go through this transformation in one way or another. So as you can see, if you look at MIT, if we looked at Microsoft, if we look at Gartner's, if we look at whoever's approach, they all say it a little bit differently, but it kind of breaks down to the same pieces. So when we look at what we think is defining the pillars of digital transformation, the one thing that you cannot do before you do anything else is define your vision, or you can't do without. So you really have to create a single vision, that's really connected to everything within your business. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to set the path, or it is tactical in terms of, well, for us to have a digital transformation strategy, I have to have these 10 things deployed by this date. Instead, we have to really look at what's the vision in terms of what we want to do as a business, and how do we expect the experience to our customers, the collaboration with our partners, how we even view our partners. What is the vision for all of these things to come together? Once you define that vision, and the vision should be broad, it should be something that is 5 years out. Sometimes I hate telling customers, like, we need to create a 5-year roadmap, because sometimes that roadmap is a little too tactical and doesn't create that agility, that dexterity that we may want as a business. But we know the vision of the business that we want to go through. If you're in the medical devices space, and you understand the type of devices that you create, your vision can span out and look at, well, how do I want to interact with my customers? Our digital transformation has to ensure that the data, the devices that we create and that we put in the field provides information back to us, right, in a compliant way, in an ethical way, in a way that allows us to scale, right? And we want to be able to do this with, by reducing our overall capital expenses on infrastructure. Very basic. Now, your vision will be different and longer, but this gives you an idea of the types of, when your company hears this, the types of investments that need to be made. It also points out challenges that you're going to have in order to do that, and I'll cover that in a moment. The second one is really around people. Now, this one seems straightforward, and this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to retool your staff or swap your staff. Some organizations do, not to be crass about it, but the big thing is setting an expectation based on this vision of what people need to be able to do, what people need to be able to adopt. You can then embed that into your performance management system. So here at Agile IT, we do everything cloud-based and SaaS-based. So we use an online service that we actually do all of our performance management with, and that allows us to set goals and set expectations. So by creating this vision, you get to then have that influence all the way down through the organization, through your performance management system, your goal setting, and really get to really embed that within the culture. If people aren't in line with the culture change that's needed in order to make the vision, that by itself is going to thwart your process in being able to drive your digital transformation. If people aren't thinking in that way, it's just not going to happen. From a product perspective, again, this is where we can be very broad and open. Right now, today, you may have a lot of products that go out into the field, and you might just be putting in login information used for debugging information, or if there's an issue, you can turn on tracing or logging and get additional intelligence. But with all the information that you put out there, whether you are shipping software, you have devices, whether your business is in the supply chain management, how are you tracking that information? So this is where you hear a lot around, IoT, Internet of Things, these IoT devices, RFIDs that can track devices as they go through your shipping channel. Getting all that data back into your organization, understand, are we taking the best route? Are things getting there and meeting the expectations that we have for delivery? Are we getting good quality when those things are delivered? Instead of asking people and have it be subjective by your customers, you can get real data back. But being able to gather all that data, one thing is in the past, it used to be costly to create that level of infrastructure, have that amount of availability that you would want to have, the amount of data that you'd have to then go through and break down, and you'd have to buy something very expensive like Cognos and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just getting it deployed and getting basics, and anytime you wanted to do any types of changes required more consulting time and very expensive just to get back the information that you want. So one of the things that we think is great within the digital transformation world is that there's all these cloud services that you can now leverage that really, where vendors like Microsoft or Amazon Web Services are really innovating by providing that kind of scalable, large data repositories that you can put information in. You can use something like from Microsoft or Power BI to visualize that information. You could work with people like ourselves or others that can get you started, help you keep it up to date, teach you, some of your business analysts or data analysts to be able to expand on that, integrate it with other data that in the past was in a completely different data system and a completely different storage device, and you couldn't integrate the two. That's the whole point of digital transformation, is you break down the barriers between all that. You force that your vendors have APIs that can work with one another. You force your vendors to make sure that data security and data mobility is key and imperative. You force your vendors. So a lot of what comes out of digital transformation is understanding the new rules that you dictate to your vendors. And we will tell you, that these are the things that you have to have, or else you're just creating new silos, and that definitely is not the way that you have to move forward. And then the processes. So when we look at the processes for for customers. One of the things that we talk about, we want to automate everything. It's in our nature at Agile IT. It's something that we always talk about within ourselves, with our customers, with our partners. We want to find ways to automate things. And one, we want to automate in a way where we're not locked into that automation. Because again, Agile is in our name, and so we want to have agility to change our processes as we need to, integrate with new services and data and products as we need to. Because as we deal in a very cloud and SaaS way, we know that these technologies and vendors change all the time. So we have to stay on our toes and make sure that we're doing the right things ourselves, but also with our vendors. But the other part of the process is that many organizations are missing is, do you document your processes? So not to get too in the weeds on this, but backup and restore obviously is normally a very big problem for organization. Nobody has a problem with backups. Everybody has problems with restores. And it's not to say that the backup solutions are bad. It just needs to be tested. Your process for recovery has to be tested. Your process for recovery to a different geography, a different location, a different data center has to be tested. And if you don't go to those things, if you don't practice it, so I was 4 years in the Marine Corps, and one of the things that was instilled into us is that we have to practice our readiness. If we don't practice our readiness, we're not going to be ready when the time strikes. So it has to be just a natural reaction to dealing with these types of things in an organization. Anyway, so having your process documented, updated, tested, make it a natural part is key to any organization. And sometimes we're just, we're working on the day-to-day. We don't get enough time to, make these sorts of investments. So those are some of the key areas that we look at. Now, if you look at digital transformation, let's focus on one particular industry, the financial services organization. We'll look at manufacturing here in a minute. There's a certain number of, if you look at the different participants in this environment, one of the things that we're seeing is that, digital, so if we just look at what a digital business looks like, so if it's, and its impact into the market, like let's say Uber. Uber is a huge transportation organizations, but today, they don't own the taxis, right? Hotels, right? So before, when you had like the Marriott chain or Hilton, you have organizations like Airbnb where they're providing this service. People can go online, they can reserve it. They've created a whole business model around it where they actually don't own any properties. There's banks and other investment organizations that are doing the same sorts of things. Now, for them, what they're doing is that it is a different kind of model. It is disrupting that part of the industry, but it's if you look at they're focused on mobile, they're focused on web, they're looking at how they can automate these processes. They create a practice around it. So other organizations end up catching up. Sometimes some companies go out of business. Right? You can look at some of the older organizations. I don't want to beat on anybody's name back in the day, but like Circuit City and other ones that just weren't able to keep up. They stuck to a model. They had a process that was just kind of nailed to the ground, and they weren't able to make adjustments on the fly fast enough till it was too late, and they just couldn't keep up. So when we look at digital transformation, it's somewhat the same thing. What is the market? What's happening in the market today, both not just with your own vertical in the industry, but all throughout the business world today around being disruptive technologies and services that are impacting what's happening. So again, it's happening in financial services, it's happening in manufacturing. Now again, depending on your vertical, you care about different sorts of things. So as we look to here in this instance for financial services, what are the principles that we're looking at doing? We want to drive growth, we want to become agile, in terms of being able to provide different types of services. One thing that it was in a bullet earlier on around failure as a service, and I really like that topic or that name, where it's really, we have to be able to provide services and not always be a winner, right? Sometimes you provide a new service, a new capability that maybe just doesn't do really well. But then we can learn, well, what did we learn about that failure? Was it because of the way we designed it, the way that we marketed it? Was it just not the right model? But being able to fail small, fail fast, and fail in a way that's not damaging. We're not giving out credit cards of information, but in a way that's safe, but allows us to learn and continue to evolve. That's both cultural. It's important for managers and CEO and VPs to be understanding that, hey, not everything's going to be a winner, but we need to make progress. So, we want to fail fast, fail small, learn, and make other changes. That's a very different way of how we build products and services in the business in the future, or in the past, I'm sorry. So 2 years ago, one of the things that we heard many organizations saying is, the cloud's inevitable, but right now, just the timing's not right. And we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do in the cloud. I hear about it, and I see Microsoft making investments, and Amazon Web Services is pretty big, but we're just not there yet. We've made all these investments into servers, and we have a co-location service that we really like, and our contract will be up in a few years. So it's all this kind of, I know it's coming, but I'm waiting. When we look at today's activity, it's here now. Now it's about, I have these services. How do I stay compliant? How do I make sure that the services that I am using in the cloud or the software as a service, how do I make sure that I'm meeting the bar around compliancy? Again, in the financial industry, a few years ago, it was, we know it's coming, but we have to wait. We're not sure. Now, the lid's off of that. Now it is cloud and SaaS is here today. How do I make sure that whatever I'm using stays compliant? Either because there's certain rules that I have to do. We're a U.S. only based organization, or we're a global organization, and have to make sure that we meet all these different rules and regulatory requirements worldwide. And then the interesting thing is that the world's regulatory services or laws understand that the cloud and the SaaS world far more. Not to say that they're full up to speed. Governments move a lot slower than technology organizations, and sometimes one is, impacting the other, but the main thing is that you're not having to teach the word cloud to the regulators anymore. They understand. So many organizations are making the move, not just the cloud, but into kind of this digitized world, if you will. Large banks have made a lot of those investments, the kind of too big to fail, type of organizations. Manufacturing is another place. When you think about manufacturing, what am I just making improvements to the manufacturing devices themselves, or am I really looking at, once I create an item, let's say cars are more connected now as they were before. Sprinklers are, I keep bringing up that scenario because I think it's something that looks like a commodity thing. But if you look at sprinklers, sometimes it's for residential, sometimes it's for commercial. Residential, you can get sensors on there to know if you have your sprinklers is leaking. Be able to have different checkpoints to make sure to find out where the leak is. If you're in a commercial world, that could be, thousands and thousands of dollars that's going down literally the drain every single week or every single month. So the information that you can provide, the value-added services you can provide there, is to help save customers money, but also protect those precious resources that we might have. But in this, all of these things work together. So again, looking from your vision, your set of services that you want to provide need to have commonality across the vision that you're going to provide. So again, breaking down what this means into the manufacturing space, what does it mean in retail, what does it mean in financial services. At the end of the day, is really going to depend on your vision and the impact you want to have in your organization. But what I can't stress enough, and hopefully you hear me kind of thumping the drum here every time, is that it really has to be across your organization. So we have to build a vision, we have to build a plan that includes all of them, including your people. So, again, we look at some of the common pillars across this: vision, people, product, and processes. Why don't people just do it? Why isn't it happening? What are some of our big challenges that we have to get this done? Well, one of the big ones is around technical debt. So this is a nice graphic. I thought I'd share this from ZDNet around some of the core challenges. So one around technical debt. Now, what this really means is that if you've had systems that, hey, it's just been working, it's how we do our ordering, there's no API, or anytime we need something we have to call somebody to write some code for us, that is a debt that you haven't paid yet, right? That is something where it's gonna impact our ability to provide a more flexible set of services. It's going to impact our ability to make faster changes. Oh, that product that we have can't move into the cloud for whatever reason. It's hardwired to work with two other systems, so there's not a lot of flexibility in the automation of those processes because they're hardwired in terms of how they talk with one another. I'm locked in to a particular set of investments that I've made there. You know, the technical skills that we have were really built around servers and closets. My IT people haven't been trained to deal with this, you know, in a very kind of API world with different types of identity and access management, with different types of services that I could use to protect my data and my contact. So I feel that they're strong, I feel that they're smart, but we haven't made that investment in those types of systems and that type of training for my people. So that is a debt that once you take inventory, and I'll talk about inventory in a moment, that needs to be paid in order to make those next big leaps. And by paid, it's, you know, yeah, I'm talking about in general. The other is organizations have devalued their view of what IT is. Now, a lot of that is changing in the industry because of what happens in a digital world where you can get this kind of information. And now the IT person becomes even more influential into what we can do as a business, the type of information that they can bring in. Because, you know, many business units understand that they do want to have this kind of interaction with the business. And what we don't want to happen is the same thing that happened to IT departments when, let's just say, Salesforce came around. When they went around IT, popped out a credit card and started getting into using those services. It does tell you that, you know, there's a need, a thirst for the business to do it, but IT can sometimes prevent those organizations. It doesn't mean that they're not trying to do the right thing. Like, hey, how are we going to protect the data? How are we going to make sure people have a single sign-on? But sometimes we protect ourselves, right? IT departments protect themselves by creating these roadblocks. But it doesn't put IT in the leadership position. So the one thing that IT organizations can do is help define that vision by working across the business units, you know, prioritizing what's important, create a path forward either through proof of concepts or just creating a roadmap to get these things done in your organization. And that's really one of the things that in order to pay down your technical debt, just like you would at home, if you had a lot of debt, one of the first things you have to understand is, what is my debt, right? What are the places where I've neglected? What are the areas, what is our process for collaboration and culture today? What's our skill sets, both technically and within the organization? You know, my data, what data do I have today? What data would I like to collect that I'm not able to collect? Do I have 15 different data stores? It doesn't mean, you know, you have to have the answer yet, but understand it. So if you came to us at Agile IT, this would be one of the conversations that we want to work through. What is your data? How do you collect it? How often do you get it? Is it static or dynamic? Where does that data come in from? Can that person who is giving you data give it to you in a pragmatic way, or can you access it as a service so that we can get fresh data instead of just getting the old days of shipping CDs or, you know, pulling, you know, FTP in a database open, which still happens a lot today. And then when we have that data, how do people use that data? Who uses that data? Why is it only them? Because they're the only one who can understand it. How do they then give it to the business decision makers or give it to people who can make differences in how they sell or how they deliver services to their customers? What are we doing there? So again, taking inventory around your data, your applications, and your processes is key. Once you understand what your current environment looks like in a way that's documented, in a way that's structured, in a way that tells us, you know, enough information, then we can get into the vision part of it. And one of the things that at Agile IT is that we've always focused ourselves as being a strategic IT partner, so that we can work with our customers, not just, hey, we can patch a box or we can monitor something for it, but really looking more broadly, like, okay, what do you want? What does your business want to do from a digital transformation perspective? So one of the things that we've been working on, you know, there's lots of capabilities in here, but one is starting to build a digital transformation roadmap that we were going to work with our customers on, kind of guide them through it as a part of one of the services that we add for our managed services. So we have a service that we call Agile Cover, which is our main managed services that we deal with our customers. For some customers, we're doing all their backup and restore. Some customers, we are managing their on-prem cloud services. Other customers, we're helping through workshops to help them get ready to move on the cloud or deliver services onto the cloud. We meet with our customers every single quarter. So again, when you look at a partner, any partner that is a part of your digital transformation plan, again, like one of the first things I talked about was make sure you pick a partner that aligns with your vision. We look for that. We look for our customers that align with our vision as well, because if not, we're not a good fit. And we think that we can be a great fit to many customers out here who understand the path, understand the value that we want to add to their organization. You know, patching and managing things is just one thing, but one day in the world there will be no servers to manage directly. You'd be managing different services, different security permissions, different identity systems, and that's a place where we can help along that digital transformation world. And again, when we look at even just narrowing just a little bit around some of the services that you would have, again, here you look at the top left pie here, infrastructure and services. It's not just infrastructure, it's infrastructure and services. So looking at what we do from a delivery perspective, an operational perspective, security, identity, there's all these aspects that you have to do within the business. And many times in an organization, they neglect it. Not because they don't think it's important, like security is a key one, not because they don't think it's important or because they don't feel they're going to get hacked. They neglect making updates on it or pushing that change because they don't have the expertise, they don't have the time. It doesn't mean it's not important. But that's why you have to pick a partner who kind of pushes you along to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So just like in, not to get too personal, but as you get into relationships with people, partners help each other, you know, complement one another and push each other to meet the goals that they have combined into the future. So those are the things that we like to do for our customers. The other area I talked about, workshops. Workshops is a way that we use. It's an ongoing monthly set of things that we do individually for customers. Here are just an example of some of the topics that you could choose from that basically we work on together for a specific problem that you have. Now these are very technical in nature, but we have other workshops coming that are much more focused on the digital transformation from a kind of higher business perspective to guide customers through what's next. You know, are we following the roadmap? Are we delivering the services that we need to? Sometimes that means we help customers prepare their digital transformation life when it doesn't even include us. If we have to pull from a partner or we work with other vendors, I always like to tell people, make your vendors work for you. So, you know, we're a key Microsoft partner. So if there's something we want to do that's an area that we don't do, we work with Microsoft. We bring in other people to make those things work, and that's some of the other value-added things that we do. So where can you get started today? So, you know, one thing, again, you need a vision, but sometimes you need to see some things first. And there's different aspects that you can get on. There's a lot of customers that we've helped migrate to Office 365, and they've been getting huge benefits of just using Office 365 and now Microsoft 365, topic for another day, but they're not making the most of it. And sometimes it's about training. A lot of times it's about process. Hey, we used to just ship spreadsheets. Now we get it through Office 365. I'm going to keep doing spreadsheets. Believe me, I like doing things in spreadsheets, but that doesn't necessarily connect my data systems together. It doesn't always give me the real-time information that I might want together. Sometimes it does. But many other times in organizations, they just keep doing the old same process, even though they have all this great capability there. So there's a lot of things that you can do to either rediscover things you've already invested in, learn how you can better utilize the data that you've been collecting, and maybe even pull from APIs that you didn't know existed. So there's a lot of areas that you can do there. If you're in the manufacturing space or the shipping space or the devices space, you know, what's happening today in the land of IoT or Internet of Things, there's a lot of things that you can do to collect that data, store it, report on it, get that information. So those are fun projects that we love to work on with customers. So if you kind of have some idea, let's talk about those ideas. Again, you know, we'd love to be your partner, but if there's somebody else, you know, you need to have the conversation. More often than not, I see customers not want to have the conversation because they kind of feel that they want to know what the quote-unquote project is before they bring it to the vendor. Sometimes your vendor already kind of has a head start on you because we understand the capabilities, we understand the pitfalls, we understand how it aligns to people's vision. So, you know, we're a great resource to kind of bounce these things off and getting it to a point where we say, okay, we now know what we want to go do, and deliver something kind of interesting for whatever business problem that we're solving. And that's one of the things at Agile IT that we really want to focus on is business problems, because that, you know, in the end, this isn't just for fun stuff. This is actually solving problems for yourself, for your customers, for your partner, or in whatever area that you're into. I don't want to get too broad and just say society's problems, but you can work on that. So next steps. So one is partnering. So I really believe that we can't be, or nobody can be, all things to all people, and you can't own every skill that's in the marketplace. You have to depend on other people. So one of the big changes you see with just cloud and SaaS-based services is that people have become okay with leveraging other people. It used to be in the past, IT directors would never trust anybody. They would say, hey, give me your software, I will operationalize it, and I will run it because I feel better that I can walk down the hall and see it in my closet. I feel like I can trust my people. We've learned that the value in that is really, really small because, there is economies of scale. There's separations of concern. Microsoft can do a better job with running 3 different types of generators connected to 3 different types of power grids, multiple internet connections going through separate conduits, coming through different locations. They can do more of those investments than I could. So that's why leveraging their infrastructure is better. They can innovate on the platforms and the APIs better than I can. So I need to be able to partner with people that can provide those set of services to me, provide compliance as a service to me. I need to work with partners that can provide security as a service, that can provide management as a service, and those are really some of the areas that at Agile IT we really focus on, is providing that kind of value-added services to our customers. So one, and where we aren't the ultimate partner, you might need an SAP partner as well. You might need a something else partner, and we like to play well with one another because again, you have to be able to partner. So partner is number 1. 2, building your vision around digital transformation for your organization. Again, this is something that we can help you out with. If you want to do it on your own and then bounce some things off of us, you can call into our sales organization or call me. More than happy to participate. But the other is taking inventory. I always believe this in anything that we do, is you have to take inventory of what your organization is. Sometimes that's challenging because you don't know what questions to ask. So again, that type of discovery, we call those readiness assessment and planning sessions. We do it for a variety of different topics because sometimes people just want to focus on one thing at a time, whether it's phone services, data services, messaging, collaboration services, infrastructure services, security services. We have different offerings that we can help. So if you kind of have something or you want to combine it, let us know and we'd be happy to work with you on it. But if nothing else, if no other takeaways you have from this today, you have to take action. Waiting around for digital transformation is not something that you want to wait for. It's happening kind of without you anyway. But what's happening is you're getting left behind and your technical debt is only growing. So the faster we understand what your environment is, the better we understand your vision, the more that we can make steps forward. And that's one thing as a partner you'd find in a partner with us, is that we want to be extremely responsive, and we like to kind of gently nudge our customers forward and kind of push them along because that's what they've asked for. They've asked for that kind of personal trainer to keep them going, getting those extra reps, keep them pushing to the next thing because they know that it's important, and they just need somebody there to kind of give them that right nudge and that level of participation to make sure that they're going. So that said, again, this was meant to be kind of a high-level understanding of digital transformation. Kind of going back, it's your vision, it's your people, it's your product, and it's your processes, and making sure that in a digitized world with data and information that they are all connected and providing value both to yourself, your customers, and your partner. So again, if there's anything that you have any questions on, or you a lot of times out of hearing this, you're going to want a one-on-one session with somebody, myself, somebody within Agile IT, to have a conversation of what that could mean for your organization, and then kind of taking the next steps in your business to start setting a pace that makes sense for you guys move forward. So that said, I don't think I see any questions in the groups, kind of a lot of stuff to take on. Again, I appreciate your time. Really the next step is we'll be sending an email out both with this deck so you can share it within your teams and kind of think about it a little bit. Setting up a call with us, so you can send me an email. My email's on the deck, conrad.a@agilet.com, and just say, hey, I have some questions in a digital transformation world. Can we talk? And we'll set up a time to discuss. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll be speaking with you soon.